Hey, this is Brad, and I'm with my wife Tiffany. Welcome to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Hope you guys have been enjoying the content that we've been putting out. And look, we're looking forward to today. Today's going to be a fun day. We're going to be talking about parenting your kids. It's a little something we know a little bit about. Listen, a little bit. So, 4 kids, and about 2 years apart. The last one was a surprise.
Surprise!
Or an accident. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, so good morning. You had a good weekend?
I did have a good weekend. Saturday, worked all day. Had a catering 50th wedding anniversary for a sweet couple. So I went and helped with that because right now, as it stands, I'm the only one that can do wedding cakes, tiered cakes. So went in the middle of nowhere. I was like, I think telling you, have you heard of this community? You've heard of this? I've lived here, never heard of them. So that was great. That was fun to celebrate that milestone in a couple's life. But then Sunday, all the kids, well, not all the kids, 3 of the 4 got to come eat lunch. I missed that. We've not been able to do that lately, so it had been a minute since everybody came over and we had lunch. Did not get to see the only son because because talking about parenting and I'll be talking about kids doing stupid stuff, not necessarily something that he did that was stupid, but he did not get to come because his insurance company had been sending him emails and letters, and being the age he is, mail's not that important. I can remember my grandparents waiting on the mailman to come and going out. I mean, the mailman, the bumper would barely leave the mailbox, when my grandparents would go out and check the mail, and we checked the mail. And I don't know if it's exactly because of that generation, but they don't anticipate mail. So he had not looked in the mail to realize that his insurance was dropping him because of something really silly, because they thought that other people were driving his car and nobody was. But and so he didn't have coverage, so he didn't get to drive to Tupelo to have lunch with us. And it's just stupid. It's over something stupid. But it's made me think about today's topic about parenting and going back to when they were teenagers and remembering that kids do some really stupid stuff sometimes. They can do stupid stuff and make you question everything. Am I a good parent? What happened? How did we get here? Where did I go wrong? When they do stupid stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing I've talked about for a long time. For years, I would say, where did I screw up? What did I do? I remember, this is a funny story. So my brother and I were 3 years apart. My brother was always bigger than I was, so if he wanted to fight, we'd fight. It was fun, we would fight. I remember one spring break, we were out of school, my mom and dad were working, and he come by and just thumped me on the ear. And I chased him down the hall, and when I did, I grabbed him around his stomach. He popped his hand out, and we broke his wrist. And so it was like, oh my God, now we've got to call one of our parents to come and get him, to carry him to go get his wrist fixed. So we called my dad, because my dad was a supervisor at Elger. My mom was working at Kruger at the time. And the other part is, we just didn't want to hear my mom gripe and complain. So we called Dad, said, hey, look, no big deal. It was a big deal. No big deal. We think we broke Chad's wrist. We need you to come home, take him to the hospital. So we just sat on the couch waiting. And oh my gosh, my mother pulled up. And as soon as she come in the door, she was already crying. What have I done? What did I do for y'all? No, it was that, what did I do for 2 teenage boys to fight and break somebody's wrist? Well, nothing. We just were being boys and being rough. So that mentality does get into you. What did I do to cause these kids to do stupid stuff? And the truth is, most of the time, it's nothing, because kids act crazy sometimes, and it has nothing to do, does not reflect on you as a parent.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is the main takeaway today will be your kids' mistakes do not reflect on whether or not you're a good parent. Now, let me say, as
Yep.
we go on, we'll talk about, the caveat is if you're doing your best.
Right.
Now,
That's
if
good.
you're an absentee parent, there's no rules, there's no guidance, there's no correction, and your kids are doing stupid stuff, well then, yeah, okay, maybe it is your fault. Maybe you have a part to play, let's say that. But we're talking about the parents who are active in their kids' lives, who are setting boundaries, providing guidance and correction when they get outside of the line of those boundaries. That's a different story. It's not necessarily anything that you did wrong, but as parents we beat ourselves up of, what did I do wrong? If they did this really stupid thing, what did I do wrong? If they come home and 6th grade and tell you their teacher is bullying them and they were treated unfair and all these things, and then you find out when you have a conference with the teacher that's not true at all, your kid made it all up, but you've talked about lying, you've never made that okay, then you didn't do anything necessarily wrong. Your kid's just, that's the thing that your kid maybe is having to deal with, is that truthfulness does not come easy, because every kid is different. We've learned that with 4 kids. Kids they've all made mistakes, but a lot of them have made different mistakes or had different areas that they had to work on. Whatever this kid was struggling with and had to work on to be a productive member of society wasn't necessarily what this kid had to work on to be a productive member of society. They're all different.
And they are, like with our kids, it's weird because 2 of them have elements of you more dominant, and then 2 of them have elements of me that are more dominant. However, even in those dominant traits that maybe my 2 kids have, that your 2 kids have, they still don't necessarily struggle the same way you and I struggle. So each kid is different in the aspect of how you have to parent them. And of course, if you've got more than 1 kid, you will probably have heard this. Well, I know who your favorite is. I know who you like better. Why did why did the baby not have to have these rules that I had to have? I mean, I was watched like a hawk, and my dad come and got me out of the movies on a date. I did that one time. So why did she, or why did he? And it's because each child has a different personality.
Yeah.
But they also have a different way that they respond to correction.
Right.
You have that kid that you may have to get the stick after, and then they still laugh and they still like, haha, that was fun, give me another one. But then you have one kid to where you can just kind of give that look,
Yeah.
and they're going to straighten up. And that's where you just have to, as a parent, you have to know your kids, and you have to get to know your kids. And no 2 kids are the same.
No. Well, and talking about having 1 kid, because we did that, seemed very unfazed by most punishments. And you talk about kids being strong-willed. I was talking to somebody recently, and they said their 3-year-old is very strong-willed. And on this side of things, I'm able to say that's not necessarily a terrible thing. You just have to learn how to parent a strong-willed child, because that's going to mean something later that's going to add value to their life and who they're supposed to be if they are strong-willed, as long as right now you can learn how to parent that and correct it and fix it so that comes out in the right way. Kids who are the ones though that you just look at and they crumble and they melt, even the thought of getting in trouble, that's a different kid. They don't necessarily have to have the same corrections as that strong-willed kid. So that's why sometimes the baby doesn't get treated the same as the middle kid or the older kid or whichever kid it is. And some people may only have one kid or two kids. I was an only child. So there was no comparison.
You did it. We knew who did it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, there was no comparison of, well, this is gonna work for you, or by the time I get to you, like I was it. But, the other thing, sometimes when you get to the baby, you just may be tired.
Yeah, that's true.
You've found that you have spun your wheels with the hundreds of rules and the hundreds of things with the oldest, and some of it you learned too late. They just weren't battles worth starting and fighting. I wish that I would have learned that a little quicker, that every battle does not need to be a battle. Some things you just can live with and walk away from. And I think our kids being, we were in full-time ministry a lot of when our kids were growing up, and so we had, I feel like, a lot of rules and a lot of standards, and our kids had to really, they didn't get to be like other kids. We didn't. There's a lot of things we didn't allow that maybe their friends, that were in their friends' homes. Like, we fought secular music so hard, and my kid still, one of them in particular, remembers it was so devastating to her that she got a Pink CD for Christmas, birthday, or something, and we threw it away because that wasn't allowed in our house.
Right.
She was younger. She was 11 or 12. But, on this side of things, I have to honestly say, I don't know that I would have done some of those things the way that I did then. Some of the battles that I fought, I don't know that I would fought them now.
Well, and you bring that up, and you go back in your mind, and you always want to self-correct the past.
Right, yeah.
There's no way you can self-correct the past, and I think that as parents, we do beat ourselves up thinking, man, if I could go back and redo that. Because you would. We would probably redo some things differently. I'm not going to, I probably still would throw away booty shaking, sex rap music, or things like that were really whatever. But you're right, I probably would pick my battles a little bit differently. There's just things that you look back at and you think, man, that was just not worth the fight. Because in the end, you can injure your kid unintentionally. Because you're right, we had such a high standard whenever we were on staff at churches. And it wasn't only because you and I have a high standard, because we did want, we trust God, we chase after God. We did want godly things for our family, for our kids, for each other. But there was a lot of pressure put on us from our senior pastors, from those who were over us, to look like you got to have everything together. And it was very difficult raising kids in that atmosphere.
Yeah.
The glass house, because the glass house always had to have clear windows and no smudges, and everything had to look right and feel right and be right. And man, and then you look back on the lives of the people who gave you that junk, and you think, man, I should have grown up. But the thing that I think too, we were so young when we had our kids. You were 18 years old when you had our first daughter. And then by I think it was 26, we had all of our kids. I remember going to the grocery store thinking, oh my gosh, our life is over. It is horrible.
Yeah.
4 kids
I think, though,
is
if
crazy.
I remember correctly, we were on staff at a church in Vicksburg, and we went to Kroger with that 4th child. And did we not encounter a little old man in the aisle that basically did tell us our life was over?
I remember, yeah.
I remember that. And our life was not over. It was getting fun. It was getting interesting. But
They take over the asylum at some point. Look, you have one kid, you play zone against that kid. You have 2 kids as mother and father, you got man to man. When you get 3, you have to go to zone defense, and you get 4, it's like, hey, listen, somebody's always open and somebody's always gonna be doing something.
Yeah. But to bring back around, what you're talking about is things that we wish would have done differently. So, are there things you're gonna wish you had done differently as a parent? Yes. But the point still stands. You cannot blame yourself for all your kids' mistakes. I think an important thing that's hard sometimes, and I feel like a lot of households do not do this, but when you're wrong as a parent, say you're wrong. There's a lot of power in admitting, hey, I didn't handle that right, or I could have done a lot better with that than I did, and apologizing. That goes a long way with your kids, because then it also says that there's no double standard, that I mess up too. The double standard would be acting like you don't ever do wrong when your kids, I mean, there's things you're going to do sometimes that your kids are clearly going to know was the wrong choice, or the wrong words to be spoken, or the wrong action taken. But where you set a difference of that, of it being a double standard or being true and right, is then saying, I'm sorry if I messed that up. I didn't handle that right. I messed it up. You know, you're talking about even with church things, you know, I would have certain things I would expect of my kids. But then at some point I said, okay, and I think they were teenagers when I said, okay, I've not always handled this right, but I'm going to handle this right now. And somebody approached my child in front of me at church about something they had on. And I stepped in between them and very nicely said, that's not going to happen again. This is you're not going to speak to my child about what they have on, and it wasn't even anything bad. You know, I'm a parent. I'll handle anything that needs to be. I'm their parent. I'm going to handle anything that needs to be handled with that. But then, you know, and telling them that won't happen again.
Right.
Nobody's going to come to you and speak to you and me back up that person, instead of stepping in and calling them out. Of, you know, you can't talk to my child that way. And I think that meant something to my kids, that I had their back when it came to the outside world and outside influences and people that felt like they could, you know, step around me. Now, let me say, if I'm not there and my kid was acting up, like you know, anybody has had permission to
take a switch.
Well, to call my kid back in line and to correction and to be an extension of me, because it does take a village to raise kids.
I think so, you know, and that's one thing that you have to set boundaries for your kids. You cannot let them run wild, but you also have to be careful in the boundaries you set, because you want to make sure that you're, you know, you can rule with an iron fist and you can alienate your kids, or you can rule with love. And, you know, for me, the Bible, and I reference that a lot, is that the Bible talks about that you need to have your household in order with gravity. That's a generalization, it's a paraphrase. But for me, what that says is that you need to rule your house well enough that you show them love, and that you're attractive enough to where they are gravitate, or they're pulled toward whatever it is, the love that you're showing them. And you've got to have these boundaries, but you've also got to have correction. You can't just say, well, you know what, man, that was terrible. Next time, you've got to put some action to it. One of my favorite stories, and I posted it on TikTok a long time ago, one of my favorite stories. For Christmas, one of my daughters, I'm not going to say which one, the middle one, got her door back for Christmas.
Yeah.
That was her favorite Christmas gift. She got other stuff, but man, the door. And everybody's like, well, what are you talking about? Well, 6 months earlier, she had done some things. We took her door off. And we said, look, privacy's earned around here. You don't get to just do whatever. Well, everybody's like, she was a girl, you shouldn't have done that. Well, she had her own bathroom. She had her own privacy that she can go in, change, and do stuff like that. But for Christmas, boom, we put a bow on it. We put it under the door because it was discipline based on the boundaries that she broke. And we had to do things like that. You know, we have crazy parenting stories.
Yeah, we do.
My goodness, we've done some fun,
You know,
crazy
and the funny
things.
thing about our crazy parenting stories is that when my kids talk about some of the things, like the door, like she shares that on Facebook. It did not injure her to have her door off. It really taught her something. You know, one of the other crazy stories that may sound extreme, my daughter is not bitter about. She learned something from it. When she was, I believe, in college, and she was working a part-time job, I walked upstairs to her room. I didn't go up there often, but I went upstairs. This was a brand new build house. brand new flooring, all these things. I walked upstairs into her room, and there was a Route 44, however y'all like to pronounce that,
City country.
sugary drink spilled all over the floor that had not been wiped up and had been allowed to dry and seep between the hardwood cracks and all those things. And then the room it really looked like something. I mean, it was something else.
Yeah.
And this had not been the first time that I'd said, like, you live here, you don't pay rent, you got to take care of our, of our things here. This is our house. We work hard for it. You got to take care of things. And enough had been enough. It had been mentioned a couple of times before, and so I went to Walmart, bought a lock with the key, drug her mattress off her bed, placed it outside the bedroom, and locked the room up. She was allowed to enter for the essentials that she needed, but I gave her a bed, she had a roof over her head, she had food, she had what she needed, but she did not get the comforts of her own private bedroom that she was not taken care of. And it taught her something. We didn't have that conversation again. Does that sound extreme? Maybe,
like
but I'm also
prison.
like, well, yeah, but I
3
wasn't
squares
also,
and a cot.
I wasn't going to allow my home to be destroyed and
Right.
replace flooring because someone did not value what had they been given.
Right, and that's I remember that story is hilarious. And,
Didn't take long for her to clean the room up. It was
did not
even a
take-
week.
No, she was ready to clean it up. But that's the thing, is that all those things sound crazy and sound extreme, and then you're like, oh my God, I would never do that to my baby. Well, okay, we did. We had fun with it. We parented, and that's the thing. We parented the best way that we knew how. We did try to learn. We did try to get better, but we did parent the best way we knew how to try to get them to what did you say, productive citizens. And that's the beauty when they're in your home. That's the beauty of them being there, is that they are allowed to make the mistakes and do the stupid things while they're under your protection, where you can guide them and you can help them learn from saying, hey, listen, that was not a good plan. There's a consequence that comes with that. And that was not a good plan. And so if you were not under my household, there's a good chance that this could be very costly for you, whether it's a relationship or whether it's jail time or there's things that they do that you have to correct, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing to remember, is that they are going to make mistakes. And that's what I believed, and that's why you have them for the time that you have them, is so that they can make those mistakes while they're not out on their own and could suffer dire consequences. And that's what I've said. Let them make the mistakes while they're at home with you, so that you can guide them, correct them while they're under your roof, and you have bail money, attorney money, all those things. And some kids, every kid is different.
Right.
Somebody may laugh and say, bail money, attorney money. Your kid may need bail money or attorney money. They may need to
We
learn
hope not.
some even hard, some really hard lessons while they're at home with you, before they are 30 years old and learn a really hard lesson, and they're, and you're driving 3 hours to Parchment or whatever. Funny story. It wasn't then, but I was talking to a really good friend, and our boys are the same age. And let me preface this by saying, at the time, it did not look like this kid may get to be a productive, tax-paying citizen, but this kid holds his master's now. He is very productive. He is a good citizen. But we were talking about the things that our boys are so similar. They both were super smart, both have attention deficit disorder. So that brings its own host of other things that come with that. But when he was in high school, they got a call that he was about to be arrested for homeland terrorism, because him and his friend went to Walmart and planted a non-combustible bomb. They built it because they were smart, and they were in, was it organic chemistry?
Yeah.
And they built this bomb and put it in a garbage can outside in the parking lot of Walmart and blew up the garbage can. Okay, they videoed it to show his teacher and thought they would get extra credit.
Well,
the
they kinda
teacher,
did.
yeah, the teacher was
Extra attention.
married to a policeman, showed it to her policeman husband. They did not get extra credit. They got charges.
Yeah.
For
Homeland
terrorism because they thought they were so smart blowing up a garbage can with all these things they learned in organic chemistry, and they had to pay an attorney, I think $4,000.
$4,000 for a chemistry experiment that they. But were they trying to be homeland terrorists? No, they were being 15-year-old boys, just being dumb.
Yeah, I think they were a little older than 15. But that's the thing is,
Still dumb.
kids can do some really stupid stuff, and I'm sure if you are listening, your kids have done some stuff that you're thinking there's no way anybody has ever done anything dumber than what my kid has done. But they're gonna do some dumb stuff, and that's the thing. They need to do the dumb stuff while they're with you, so that you can help them realize that was really stupid. And if you did this 10 years from now, this is the consequence you could have had. Now, this is the consequence you're going to have today, but this is the consequence that could happen to you if you're 10 years down the road with this thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and here's, so getting ready to finish up here in the last couple of minutes. You know, you've got to give yourself grace. Now, I'm not telling you to give yourself pass on everything, because some things as a parent, it is your job to guide your family and to guide your kids to be productive and to learn about the things of God and those type things. If you're a Christian, you've got to be a parent, but you got to give yourself grace. And here's the other thing is that when you give yourself grace, you've also got to give other parents grace. It's easy to judge when you're standing on the outside looking in. You don't know the dynamic of that family. You don't know the dynamic of what's going on with that kid or maybe what has been happening. And so you've got to be graceful. And when you're graceful, grace is shown back to you. And I believe that with all my heart. And you know, they are listening. Would you agree?
They are listening. I think that's the thing, is that they're listening to what you say. They are going to get where they're going. It's so hard to see it sometimes when you're looking at this 8-year-old or 13-year-old or 16-year-old kid. They are going to get where they're going. They are most likely not going to live with you forever. They're going to be productive members of society because they're listening to what you're telling them, believe it or not.
That's right.
They're going to apply it. It may not be now. You
Right.
may not see it today,
Right.
but you will see it.
That's right. And that's it. Your job is to plant the seeds.
Right.
You cannot determine when the crop comes up, but your job is to be a good parent, plant the seeds, and listen, here's the thing, I want to leave you with this. If you're struggling as a parent, if you have beat yourself up and you feel like, man, I have blown it, I don't know how I'm going to fix things, I wish I could go back and redo things. Listen, give yourself some grace. God loves you. He will forgive you. Your kids will move through this. And listen, if you've made mistakes, go apologize. I remember that I had to apologize several times in my life, and I still do that from time to time. And there's nothing wrong with humbling yourself before your kids and saying, listen, I was not perfect. I did the best I could in situations, and I'm asking for your forgiveness. Can you forgive me? And let's move forward. And you know what? People are resilient. Your kids want to love you. Your kids want to be close to you. And so today, just encourage you. You're not a bad parent. You're a good parent. God loves you. And hey, listen, we love you too. There's two kind of people. There's kind of people that walk the walk, and then there's kind of people who talk the talk. And Tiffany and I always try to prefer to be the kind that walk the walk. We encourage you to do the same. If you've enjoyed this podcast, hey, listen, give us a follow. Share it with your friends. Give us a 5-star review. And listen, we appreciate your time. Look forward to spending more time with you in the future.
The Walmart incident.
Well, that's actually my first cousin. Her son Jace
Oh my gosh.
and our son Cade. Oh my goodness, they are.
I'm sorry.
I need to kill that heat.
No. I got
No,
pee.
okay.
I got pee.
They